is he not only talks the talk, he walks the walk. And he gives freely. He gives freely to me over the times that I've known him. He gives freely to his family. And he believes in creating legacy. And what I love about the fact is he's showing us how to create legacy because he always has his family with him. So when he's not just talking to you and to you, but he's talking to them too. So he's going to come up here and he's going to talk to you and he's going to share a message as only Kevin Wilson can. So again, I'm going to have y'all standing on your feet again. So let's get the energy up in the room. Let's get started. Let's get started. As we welcome Kevin Wilson.
I was gonna say, but not to cover up loosely. Oh well, can't beg it, can't choose me. Wanted to receive attention from my music. Wanted to be left alone, come up, excuse me. One of my kids can get two, but watch it both ways. Fade maybe a balloon. My ego inflated when I do see it's confusing. Cause all I wanna do is be the Bruce Lee of abuse me. Using that tool when I blue steam. Head the lottery, blue we get what I think when you get. Instead of sleep, it's like winning the use limit. Ironic, cause I think I'm getting so huge, I need a shrink. I'm beginning to lose sleep. One sheep, two sheep, going cuckoo. Kooky is kooky. I'm actually creating a new thing. Cause we're here at the BTBY. I need everybody moving now. I need to see you dancing. Cause we're going through this whole song. I'll tell you why in a bit, but I want to feel that energy. Let's see you little women coming to bash you. If you got the oh in here, then break it out. I want to hear it. That's not there. I can hear you, I can hear you. Not much of a pull up, but I know somebody once told me to seize the moment and don't squander it. You never know when it all could be on the road, so I keep climbing. Sometimes I wonder with these thoughts. Come on, bro. Cause I need an intervention and standing between me and sponsor to save me from myself and all this conflict. Cause the very thing that I love killing me and I can't conquer it. My OCD's haunting me and they keep knocking. Nobody's home. I'm sleepwalking. I'm just delaying with the voice in my head saying don't shoot the messenger. I'm just friends with them. Okay, I can see the best dance move in here. Who's got it? Who's moved the best? Come on, who's got it? Come on, somebody show me. Somebody wants to show. Here we go. We got a little woman over here. There we go. Come on. Keep going. Who can we get? Let's go. Come on. Keep it moving. Keep that moving. Whoa. We're almost there. Becoming the best you. Keep that movement going. Come on. Who else got the dance moves? Let's see it. Come on now. Bring it down. Here we come here. Call me crazy, but I had to vision. One day that I'll walk amongst you, regular civilian. But until then, drugs can kill. I'm coming straight at MCs, but can spill them. Take it back to the day that I get on the train track. Very cute, play that. Pump the feelings, if you say that. To the kids who play it. I ain't here to say the fair good children, but if one kid out of 100 million who are going through a struggle feels didn't relate, that's great. It's laid back, Russell Wilson on the way back in the trap. Turn nothing into something, still can make that star in the cold truck. My wheels spin, Russell still skin in a haystack. Maybe I need a straight jacket, face stacks. I am nuts for real, but I'm okay with that. It's not that we're still friends with them.
Y'all give them the energy right now.
We're gonna finish it up strong. That's Kevin Wilson. Keep this stage going. The beat's gonna drop. We're gonna feel it. We're gonna keep moving and we finish out the song. Let's go. Here we go. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on, y'all. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. You. Go, Kevin. You. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. Go, that's the thing. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. Oh, that's the thing. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin. Go, Kevin.
So I'm highly introverted. I say that actually, this may come as a surprise. I actually am a highly introverted person. Now, the reason I say that is because to bring the true gravity in moments like this, that's not something I would normally do. It's just not. That's a growing moment. But I have to give you a little background on it. But before I do, I want everybody to do a favor for me. I know everybody here's got a phone. Just take out your phone really quick. I know it's nearby. I know you're checking. You'll probably be checking stuff as I'm speaking here. That's okay. Take your phone out, turn your camera on, and turn it back on you so you can take a selfie of yourself. Just do that now. Take a selfie of yourself. Once you got that, just put it back down. I'll talk about that later. I was at an event. I think it might have been Dr. West's Black Belt Speakers event. And I was going up to speak, and the DJ wanted some walk-up music. And I hadn't had walk-up music ever before in a presentation, so I couldn't think of what to do. So I was sitting around the breakfast table with my family, and I had written a book called Difficulty Demon, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So my daughter, who's here with us today, my whole family is, yeah, give them a round of applause. They came. Believe me, they get tired of listening to me, so I'm glad they showed up this morning. They don't like listening to me all the time. But my daughter said, well, Daddy, you should play the Monster song. And I was like, oh. I was a little mad that I didn't think about that. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. But my daughter loves Eminem, and that came to her mind right away. She's the only person I know that can sing to Eminem and leave out all the cuss words. Like, I'm impressed. I even told her, just say them. Just say them. Because I'm not, and she'd be like, see, Slim Shady, you know. I don't know how she does it. But she said, play the Monster song. So I thought, okay, that's a good idea. So we're at that event, and I get up there, and DJ Mike J, he starts up the music, and I'm walking up, and I'm walking to the stage. But the funny thing was that we had karaoke to that song at home so many times because my daughter loves singing it. So I got up to the stage, and it was almost like when my son was being born. When my son was being born, my wife, she's a CRNA. She works in surgery. Dr. West and I own a surgical staffing company. He worked in surgery for years. I have a hard time spelling OR, let alone being in it. So I'm not a blood guy and all that. I'm like, yeah, you tell me about it. Dr. West showed me we do pressure point work, and he showed me the surgery of his neck, and he was showing me it, and it took me a little, I was watching, then I saw what I was looking at. I said, oh, turn it off. I can't look. But when my son was born, he was C-section. I was sitting over here on my appropriate side of the drape, you know, and I'm like, okay. And they start saying, well, he's out. And my legs just took on a mind of their own, and they started doing this. I was like, what are you, sit back down. What are you doing? And I stood up and I looked, and I was glad that I stood up and enjoyed that moment. But the same thing happened when I walked up on that stage. I'd karaoke so many times, I had no intention of singing, and it just started coming out. And I was like, what? And I said, what am I doing? But it was fun. It was a living in the moment. I got up here, reflect on the past, plan for the future, live in the moment. We've heard a lot of that. It's so funny that I had that right there because we've heard a lot about that so far this weekend. How many of you know those people that talk about everything they used to do? Right? Oh, we're probably guilty of it ourselves sometimes too. How many of you know those people that talk about all the stuff they're gonna do? Right? I just have to say, everything I say I'm gonna do is stuff I'm not currently doing, so shut up about it, right? Living in the moment. You guys are doing it now. This is a living in the moment situation. And in that moment, I lived it. And so I told DJ Mike J then, I said, one of these days I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna do that whole song. And here we are. So I had mentioned, I wrote a book called Difficulty Demon. I want to share that with you because it's so interesting to me because I've heard so many people talk about things that are in that. I want to get one thing clear. I heard James talk earlier. Where's James at? I saw him. I can't see him. There he is. James talked about earlier that inner critic in our head, right? That's what we're talking about with our difficulty demon, and I'll kind of explain where that came from. That critic, that demon, they're sneaky because they make their voice sound like us. And it does us a disservice sometimes. But it kind of came about because my son and my daughter, we got them enrolled in piano lessons when they were young. And my wife and I, never having taken music, were naive enough to take lessons along with them. I found out that our kids' musical abilities was not genetic. And I also found out that they could certainly learn a lot faster than us when we were in our 40s and we started. But an interesting thing happened. My son, my daughter's great because she's very methodical, very goal-oriented, does a lot of things. My son he just had a natural affinity to the piano. He could just play it. And I was like, where does this come from? So he starts playing the piano and he's doing well. But there was one day he's sitting in our living room. I'm doing some work at the computer over in the kitchen area, and he's playing this song. And as he's playing, it sounds good, he's playing this part, he says, at the beginning of the song, and then he skips over some and plays the end of the song. And my wife, she hears him, and she comes in, she goes, Calvin, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm playing the song. She goes, well, you're skipping over this part. You need to practice this too. This was your homework, practice this. He said, okay. Well, she left the room, well, guess what he did? Right back to it. Right back to it. He played the beginning, played the end. So I went over to him, and I said, of course, I heard this. He did not hear this. So I went over to him, and I said, hey, what did Mommy ask you to do? He goes, well, she asked me to play the piano. As Dr. West said, I was born at night, not last night, right? I said, no more specifically. What'd she ask you to do? Well, this song right here, Daddy, I'm playing this. I said, no, more specifically. Well, then he knew the gig was up. He's like, oh, okay, well, she asked me to practice this middle part. I said, well, why aren't you doing it? What do you think he said? It's too hard. That's too hard. And I said, I get it. So I said, how many times do you think it would take that if you practiced that, sincerely practiced it, you might get it to sound like the rest of the song? And he said, I don't know, maybe 10 times. I said, cool, hold on. And I went and I got a piece of paper and a Sharpie and started drawing 10 circles. And he's a smart kid. He goes, no, Dad, maybe 3 times. Nope, you already said 10. You already said 10. So I drew 10 circles. Now, the verbiage came out later, which led to this book, but I told him, I said, we all have a difficulty demon that lives in our head, and his only job is to keep us from being great. He'll say all kinds of things from us, all kinds of things distract us, to get us to complete our goals and to be great in what we want to do. I said, so every time you earnestly practice that section of the song, I'm going to color in one of these circles. But you're not going to make it to all 10, so your demon's not even worried about it. And he said, oh, okay. So he decided to sit there, and he tried it the first time, and he played it. And it was terrible. It was really, I see why he didn't want to play it. It was bad. But he finished it, and he looked up at me all proud, hey! I said, in math, they call that 10%. 10%. You've only got 10% there. Your demon's not worried, So he says, okay. So he does it a second time. He looks up a little bit less excited, but I said, okay. So I colored in the second one. Then he did it the third time. And this is what I found. This is a moment from my own reflection. He did it the third time already. It sounded so much better. Like Pareto's Law, 80-20, 80% better just in that third time of practice. And it made me think, how many times do we put off doing things because we're afraid of it or we think we're not good at it? And it just would take us doing it 3 times to already have that amount of improvement. And if we would just to commit to doing it. So I was really kind of paying attention. This is kind of interesting. So he did it a 4th time. Still sounded better. 5th time. Well, now I decided that it would be a disservice just to let him finish all 10 circles. So I start discouraging him. I told him, I said, yeah, you know what? That sounds a lot better already. You can get up, you can go. And he said, cool. Oh, yeah, I know, this is a test, right? so he said, no, I'm saying he sat back down. So he did it 6 times. So now I started hollering at him. All right, that's enough. Stop. You're getting your demon nervous. You're getting bored towards that greatness. That's enough. Just quit. So he plays it a 7th time. I start yelling louder. I start yelling while he's playing the song. He could barely even hear the song. He's still playing. I start yelling more. I get it. He gets to the 8th, 9th time. I'm yelling even more. My daughter came to the top of the stairs. She said, Mommy, I think Daddy's mad at Calvin. 8th time, 9th time, 10th time he finishes. I've been yelling, I've been screaming, I've been discouraging, and like the silence was palpable. It was just total dead silence. And in that moment, he knew, and I knew, he had beaten that demon. He had seen the possibility that resides in all of us, and anything that we want to do, just to persevere. We heard that word this weekend. Just to persevere and keep going. And he looked up at me, and he had a tear running down his cheek, and I thought, oh, there goes the Father of the Year award, But he looked up and he said, Daddy, can we do that again? And I was like, okay, all right. So, but I shared this experience with his piano teacher and my piano teacher, and we got to talking, and we ended up writing this book, Difficulty Demon, just out of the learning process. Because what we see in her students and in my students, we see this overlap. It's the human condition that we have to fight through to get greatness in anything that we want to do, including ourselves. So we started talking about the things that hold us back. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of chapters, and you tell me if it resonates with anything you've heard this weekend. The first door, and I'll explain that in a minute, is the demon of anxiety. We heard that talk about a little bit. What about guilt? What about worth? What about control? What about fear? What about growth? These are all things that we're talking about this weekend. These are the things that we know are either holding us back, or we can use them to propel them. We can collaborate and use them to propel them to our greatness. And we do that analogously through the book. We have a hallway, and it's got a bit of a martial arts and a music undertone because the martial arts and a musician wrote the book. But there's 10 doors along the way. At the beginning of the hallway, it's just analogous with life. We're born into this world. And along the way, we have different doors. We traverse this hall. We choose to open these doors or not, but at the end of the hall is our eventual death. Now, I'm going to give you a situation. Too many times, and we're all guilty of this on varying levels, we walk by these doors in life, and with these opportunities, these things that scare us, and we're afraid to open them. Why? Because we're afraid of what's on the other side. There's a great fear in the unknown, so we maybe don't open this one. Some we open, some we don't, but the problem is if we don't open those doors and embrace those experiences, what happens is we get to the end of our hall, we turn around and we realize all we did was arrive safely at death. And that's no kind of life, right? So we encourage the reader. The reader has to go through these experiences in our book, but they go through and they open these doors, and they have those experiences, and they have tool takeaways to do it. But this became this larger movement in the aspect that how many times, I brought my glasses just in case I can't see this time. And if that's not an indication I should have put them on, I don't know what is. But too many times in life, we let these things determine our successes. I always got Jeff, right? I always got Jeff. These human conditions plague us all. And that's what we realize as we go through life, is we can either run in fear. Too many times we just get caught running from things or not embracing things because we're afraid of it. When we just turned around and faced it, maybe it wasn't as bad as we thought, right? Maybe if I just sat down at the piano and just played it 3 times, maybe I could actually have some success in this. I was just reminded, Dr. West one time told me, I don't remember what he was working on, but he was talking about he wanted to create this situation where he gave I don't remember what it was. This was years ago, but it just came to me. He was talking about creating this voice for whatever problem you were having. You know, huge problem in your life, huge problem. But you get like this Mickey Mouse voice, or like little tiny squeaky voice, right? Sometimes that's what the things really sound like. We're just too afraid to find out. Right? So what happened was I realized Dr. West and I started a company in 2001. It was a medical company, and I was in charge of a lot of the finance stuff. I had a degree in business, so I put all my business degree to work, my education. But I realized very quickly that for me, I was doing these things to make sure that my company was financially successful. And then I took a look at myself, my personal situation, and discovered I was broke. And I said, well, how can this be? How can this be? And I realized because I never had any financial education. So I went on started getting a financial education. I started learning as much as I could. But with that came another thing too. Yes, we put together a plan. Yes, we made some sacrifice. My wife and I sat down in 2003. We had a net worth of negative $14,000, which if you don't know, that's not a good net worth. Of course, that's relative. Some people would kill to have that, you know. But I told her, I'd read a book called The Millionaire Next Door. I'll explain that in my breakout session. But I told her, I said, I want to be one of those millionaires next door. So we put together a plan. And from 2003 to when we checked it in 2013, we were officially millionaires by the put things. Yeah, thank you. I'll take it later. It was a lot of work. But here's what I understood as that was even going through. See, it's not just about math. We all know the math that takes us to being millionaires. It is, what is your relationship like with your demon of anxiety when it comes to your financial decisions? What is your relationship like with your demon of guilt when it comes to your financial decisions? Big one. What is your relationship like with your demon of worth when it comes to your financial decisions? What is your demon like with your, or relationship like with the demon or money with the demon of control. I was trying to remember who was talking about this. It was in control. Was it Andy? Where's Andy at? There he is. Yeah, there he is. I loved what he said. He said, "You're in control of your body, so you, or rather, not in control, right? It's a precarious relationship. So we realized we had to make sure that we are making those decisions for ourselves, and make sure that we are putting ourselves in position to have collaborative relationships to get better with those. We set on track. I do that now. I wrote a whole course. I talk about just trying to make those differences. Because here's the thing. Let's just say we were all millionaires. I read an interesting study. And you guys will get this. Everybody in this room will get this. I read an interesting study. It said that people hang out with people that are within 10% of their own income. And I thought that was interesting. I thought, well, why is that? Why is that? I thought it was about the money, the stuff they could do together. It's not. It's about mindsets. It's about mindsets. And if you have the proper mindset, then you are able to move forward in a favorable direction. And oftentimes, given enough time, again, I said we got millionaires in 10 years. I didn't say we woke up one morning and said, hey, we're going to do it, and the next morning we were. 10-year process. Right? We had another 10 years. We're trying to hit the multimillionaire mark. Missed it by that much. But it's okay. It's a rough economy. But it's a mindset that takes us through that process and sees that perseverance and that longevity so that we can do what we do. Because here's the real thing. At the end of our hallway, the culmination of the last chapter is it's our demon of growth. And we don't even have this. I had a friend of mine that bought a book years ago, and he said he got to the end, and he said, I was ready to call you. Actually, somebody I hadn't even seen for a long time. I used to work with him, and he had bought the book, and he said, I was about ready to call you and say, you messed up. You messed up. I got to wait to the end. There's no demon of fear in your chapters. You messed up. You needed fear. And then he got to the end. He said, I was about ready to call you, and I got to the end and said, oh, demon of fear is not mentioned because demon of fear is present in every single room. Oh, okay. And that's right. Fear holds us back on so many levels. And that growth level, that ability to push ourselves out of that comfort zone, that's where our greatness happens, those micro moments. I tell my students, you can practice in class, but the minute you go home and practice a little bit on your own, that's where the magic happens. The minute we take those time to do things on our own and discover where we're short and fill that gap, that's where the magic happens. But growth is a scary thing because we feel like sometimes we don't measure up. And every single person, this is what we have to understand. My wife was at a conference once, and I'll just be honest that a lot of the presentation was pretty subpar. Of course, I was biased because I've seen lots of great speakers. And I told her, I said, that's unfortunate. They couldn't have got somebody better. And she said, well, not everybody's comfortable on the stage like you and the guys you hang out with. I said, don't give us that disservice. We're just as human as them. We just put into practice the time, the effort, the energy, and we get up there and we do it, and we're just as nervous as anybody else. I said, so don't take that away from us. Every single person has a relationship with their demon of anxiety, the demon of worth, and it's either good or bad, but we all struggle with it, and it's day to day. Day to day. None of us are immune. It's the human condition. So growth can be a scary thing. Where you at, Jeff? No, I got it. They just keep going. No, but I want to encourage everybody today. I am doing a breakout session. I know there's several good ones. I know I had a hard time picking one yesterday. There's several good ones out there today as well. I will be talking about some of the different things that we did from the finance growth perspective, how we made that relationship work for ourselves as a family unit, as we brought the kids in that, as we worked with the kids. I got a 13 and a 15-year-old as well, boy and girl, so I know what it's like. Where's Trey at? Yes, I feel you, man. but they're all growing moments, and that's what it's about. That allows us to live. We can reflect on the past, we can plan for the future, but all we're guaranteed is this moment. So I challenge all of you to do your best to live in your moment. I'm Kevin Wilson. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much, guys.
I'm friends with the monster.
Give it up for Kevin Wilson.
With the voices inside of my
Oh, y'all can do better than that. Give it up for Kevin. Yes.
I'm crazy. Yeah, you think I'm crazy.
Mic check. You can hear me okay? Come on, y'all.
Where else? I hope y'all have really looked at this moment today